All right, y'all, you're in for a treat today. So, Amy just lit a Jesus candle that she got from where?
The Mexican section of the grocery store on Witch Mountain.
Where
A
she lives.
dollar 99. The best deal.
You can be a cheap witch.
Also, Jesus candles are extremely powerful and they are very underestimated and underutilized.
Yeah.
And I'm basically just for anybody who's listening who cares, I call any candle that comes in a glass, you know,
Yes.
jar, like Catholic candles, any kind of religious candle for me is a Jesus candle, whether Jesus is on it or not.
Yes. Yes,
There,
because I love the Chango ones. I love all of those. Yes.
it's all Jesus. I
Yeah.
mean, they're all Jesus candles. I don't, Chango can be on it. It doesn't matter to me. It's all Jesus candle. But I really, there's a song, Alpha Blondie has a song called Come Back Jesus, which you have to listen to. It's one of the most beautiful songs ever. And I'm like, if there was ever a time that Jesus really did need to come back, or, you know, the divine feminine, like, she's back. I don't know what the second coming is, but we need it right now. Right. So I'm gonna light Jesus candles and just say, please, if anyone's listening, wake us the fuck up the fastest possible, please.
And I mean, isn't that what we've been going through? Like a sped up motherfucking awakening? Like I feel like just been on like the fast track to that type of
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I mean, look, there's been many moments in time that have been massive wake up calls, but I feel like, the passing of George Floyd, the killing of George Floyd was a boom in a wake up
Yes.
call, which I think was it in the pandemic?
It was the end of May 2020.
Okay, so it was right as we were all going into the pandemic. So
Yes.
pandemic, boom.
Right.
George Floyd, that was like global
It was an
awakening. That was
accelerator. Yeah.
an accelerator. That was like everybody was like, "Oh shit, I'm racist," and I didn't know it. Let me handle my shit real quick. Um, I thought I knew what was up. It's like you find out you're white. Oh, shit. I didn't notice until now, right? Like at least for me, I mean,
Yeah.
I've had many awakenings, but it feels like we're in a very accelerated period of awakening.
Yes.
You know, I would say, I mean, every election that we've had in the United States in the last few years has been like, what? You know,
Yes.
to look at what's happening in the United States, it's like, you guys thought we had it together? Who's in charge? Nobody.
Nobody. I guess it's
Nobody.
us.
Yeah, I guess it's us. And I just feel like there's been different awakenings for people to come if you're if you're in it. And I think that also there's a mass delusion, which I certainly have been in and am also in. Like we're never not in a mass delusion, I think, if we're part of humanity. But I think it's also a huge awakening, and we can talk about some of this. Today is 50 days that I have not drunk motherfucking alcohol. 50
Mm,
days, which
hmm
is huge for me.
hmm
I was
hmm
a wine witch, you know.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I learned how to drink in the entertainment industry and I kept on drinking, and it is an anesthesia, it's an anesthetic. People don't understand. You're drinking a drug that will put you to sleep. It will pass you the fuck out if you drink enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
They used to use this for surgeries before we had better alternatives, and they stopped using it because it was so toxic to the
Yeah.
human body, but we keep drinking it,
Yeah.
right? And I think that a lot of people are anesthetizing themselves right now,
With
whether
food
it's
as well.
food, which is another of mine. I have all the general mass addictions, right? Addiction to food, addiction to alcohol, weed. I don't have cigarettes, thank God,
Yeah.
but I got enough. And it's like also, I think a lot of people, you can be in an awakening while you're asleep, like, or you're anesthetizing yourself, which is what I was
Yes.
doing. So I was just like, I grapple with, was I anesthetizing the energy that's an awakening within me because I wasn't ready to hold it yet?
Mm,
Or was I anesthetizing myself because it's really hard to be a super feeler in the world, number one.
maybe both, Amy.
Yeah, and an extrovert, you know, and it's
Yeah.
like, you know, in our pre-chat, we were talking about energy, and it's like, you know, how do I maintain my ability to be present in a world that seems like nobody's in charge, and the ones that are able to pull the levers and make things happen seem to be absolutely fucking batshit crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people who also are in that same delusion. And it's like, how can I exist in a mass delusion when I'm starting to have cognitive dissonance in my subconscious, right? So it's not even necessarily in my conscious. And
Right.
that's really scary. And, you know, it's like looking at all the stuff you got to look at if you're going to really wake up in the world, like racism, sexism. I work a lot with, you know, male, you know, with female, you know, with women, with the conditioning that is put on those who were born into bodies identified as female, right?
Mm.
Like whatever you identify as, it
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter. If you're a
Yeah.
conditioned woman, you've got a particular experience in life, and it's like, whether it's racism, you know, sexism, Islamophobia, you know, anti-Jewish hate, whether it's, you know, classism, whatever. It's like these are different levels of awakening. And just also to, you know, what am I participating in?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, what am I participating in? Like, how am I supposed to speak up in this world that is so scary that I see everyone around me? And this has happened to women for fucking centuries upon millennia, and also people of color, depending on where you live in the world.
Yeah.
You're shut the fuck up. You can't speak. You know, like, I mean, if you go back far enough, like women literally had stuff, like there were ways to muzzle a woman so she couldn't speak, because if she spoke up, her
Mm-hmm.
husband or the male that was in charge of her, because men were in charge of women,
Yeah.
could put them into these kinds of things. So you learn not to speak. So if you're awakening in a world that's gone absolutely fucking mad, which no one's giving any credit to the fact that the entire, well, some people probably are, the entire world was in a collective trauma
Yes.
of the pandemic. And
Absolutely.
then there's been other traumas that have happened, and it's like, I don't think anyone's had a chance to heal. And we're in a massive, like, at least it feels to me, awakening of human consciousness.
Yes.
Talk about second coming. It's not like who people think it is. It's us fucking waking up.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
not, I mean, maybe Jesus will come back. I just lit my Jesus candle. Come back, Jesus. Come back.
But
You
it's
know,
Jesus.
it's
It's Christ consciousness waking up in
consciousness.
us. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, and that I think is such a powerful energy, and it's been so co-opted and diluted, and you know, I read some article where a religious writer, a pastor, was talking about the fact that people are saying, hey, like what you're saying is not, you know, I don't know, dominant enough, what the word is that I'm looking for here in the article. And the guy's like, I'm literally quoting Jesus. Like, that's like, you're upset that what I'm saying isn't, like, you know, Christian enough. And he's like, I was literally quoting the words of Jesus Christ as written in the Bible. And this is not, we need to be harsher.
Oh my God.
We need to be meaner. We need to look down on people more. We need to hate more. And the guy's like, well, this is Jesus. So it's hard to be a Jesus adherent and not adhere to the words of Jesus. But I agree with you 100%. Whether people want to call it Christ consciousness, just let me say that again, Christ consciousness or not, it's a lot of C's, or the awakening of divine consciousness, or the awakening of universal consciousness.
Right.
It's almost like we have gotten ourselves as humanity. Thank you, humanity, for the gift of getting us to the point of almost cratering the earth, that people are actually waking up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're actually waking up, and social media sucks, and also they're able to see it.
Yes, exactly.
Right? You know, so
Right.
it's like we're in a really unique time where it's almost like the forces of, let's call it totalitarianism, or the forces of, somebody might want to call it extreme patriarchy. It's like
Yeah.
the power of domination
Yeah.
is rising, and then the power of liberation is also rising at the same time. And it's sort of like,
We're
if
having
you,
to mobilize this big wave, right? Not against the energy, but just kind of within ourselves and sort of get really big and take up space and hope that we shine a bright enough light to eradicate, right? Or to just like drown out uh, this other totalitarian energy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's also people who have different belief systems who are also rallying to rise up to just go, no,
Mm-hmm.
what you are speaking is so upsetting to whatever my belief system is that I cannot allow you to exist. And I really love, working with the concepts of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, which you and we both went to were we in the same year with Layla Martin?
No, no, no. I wasn't in Layla Martin, but I do work with nervous system stuff. Yes.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, I thought we were both in that same group, but I think we've been in some of the same things together.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, because if when your subconscious brain takes over,
Yeah.
and I think most people on earth right now are being conditioned to reside mostly in their subconscious, kind of most primal brains
Yeah.
right now, which is why that people are having a hard time, I think, having I'm going to call it command of themselves. um it's like fight, flight, freeze is such an instinctual thing, and fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And when I was looking at that, there's another one, I can't remember who it was that said this. It's fight, flight, freeze, and annihilate.
Ooh.
Like a rage so big it's bigger than fight. I must destroy you.
Wow.
I
Wow.
must I have been triggered so hard
Right.
into that it's not just fight you to defend myself, it's
Right.
fight you to
To another.
destroy you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an energy that I see very mobilized on
Yeah.
this planet right
Yeah.
now, and it's contagious,
Yeah,
right?
because it really
It's just,
taps into that lizard part of our brain, right? Into that survival, into that war, primal warlike parts of us, right? And I think that social media definitely plays a part in that separation, in that um yeah, just kind of like in the binary of good and evil, right, wrong, righteousness, right?
yeah.
All of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then what I noticed, because not only have I successfully gotten myself off alcohol for the last 50 days, I've also really gotten myself out of the news spiral.
Yeah.
Um, which I had successfully, I used to work in television.
Yeah.
I worked in the entertainment industry. If I ever had to try to explain to my mom's friends what I used to do, I'd be like, I put the Coke cups on the judge's desk for American Idol, which, I did the deals with the advertisers who paid us millions of
Yes.
dollars to put their products in our show to sell
Yeah.
more of their stuff, because
Yes.
they want to connect to you want to connect to emotionally resonant moments,
Mm.
right? Because you want to create like a good feeling with your brand. So
God.
that's what I did for a living, and it came out of, I lost my train of thought what we were talking about here.
It's okay. Let's
But
just go.
it was like, I came out of that world,
Yeah.
which is one of the manipulations of consciousness,
Yes. Yes.
biggest one, right? The entertainment industry.
Yeah.
It's like you can't get more, you know,
Smoke and mirrors and manipulation and illusion.
yeah. And also, like, I learned how to drink in Hollywood in the entertainment industry, because that was all one of the ways I survived it.
Yeah.
One of the ways I survived the absolute unbelievable stress, especially of working in live television,
Yeah.
live television being watched by millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
We'll create, a particular fortitude within one,
Hmm.
let's just say.
Hmm.
And one of the ways that I got up every day and did it was drinking every night. and then
Yeah.
getting up the next day and going into like an experience of so much stress, and then going,
Yeah.
drinking and then getting back up and doing it. And I think what I was originally was going to say was it's really interesting too with social media because you very easily and quickly find yourself within an echo chamber.
Yeah.
So the only thing you're getting served up is either, or usually because the algorithm favors things that make people mad and
Hmm.
and create agitation,
Yes.
like and pissosity. I'm fucking pissed, mad at you. So it's like you find yourself in an echo chamber where that's being served up. That's all you're hearing. That's all you're being fed,
Your
right?
nervous system is getting all riled up, right? It's getting
Yeah,
like pulled in all these different directions. Yeah.
day after day. And if you were like me, you would then anesthetize your nervous system at night so that you could pass out, fall asleep, wake up the next morning. And if I couldn't sleep at night, I would pick up my phone and look at Instagram
Right.
and would absolutely horrify and horrorize myself from what I was seeing that was
Hmm.
happening in the
Hmm.
world, right? Just like, what
Hmm.
the fuck? Wake up, get back at it of overstimulating.
Yeah.
And so I think that the world is filled with people whose nervous systems are like vibrating. They're like on edge and they don't know how to function anymore because now their patterning is more into the reptilian brain. I sound like I'm some kind of conspiracy theorist. And you're much more easily controllable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, like, I feel like everybody who's awakening is getting themselves, number one, out of that nervous system
Fight, flight.
dysregulation.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That is that. I think that's a huge step in sort of like exiting the matrix.
You gotta pull out.
Yeah.
And whatever your matrix is, it might be Facebook, it might be alcohol, it might be weed, it might be all three at once, which is
Yes.
what let me do all of them and then argue with my boyfriend at the same time. Right. It's like, how do I pull out? Pull and pray, pull and pray, a new way, a new way. You got to pull out and
Yeah.
pray that you don't get pulled back in.
Yes.
At least until you can go back in with the consciousness to understand it's almost like a drug that because it is having an effect on your brain chemistry. It
Yeah.
is a drug. And then it's almost like I was administering some kind of cocktail to just function,
Yeah. Yeah,
you
I mean,
know?
I remember getting through my early years of motherhood by just eating chocolate. Chocolate was like what I gave myself at the end of the day as a reward. Sugar was my drug of choice, my gateway drug, and it's sort of like, yeah, it was all food. And when I got sick and was no longer able to eat sugar, oh, all holy hell broke loose because I started to feel all the shit that I was numbing, all
Yeah.
the shit around not belonging, loneliness, like all of the, all of fear of rejection, all that shit came bubbling to the surface, right? That was my sort of raw entrance into like, all right, you're gonna feel fucking everything now.
Yeah.
You're gonna commit to being a deep feeler and you're gonna be metabolizing all of that shit through your system. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And that is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, and that's like when you and this is sort of where you really your skill set really comes in too because you being the witch that you are, like when we allow ourselves to be channels, when we stop numbing ourselves, we become channels, right? Energy channels. We begin to receive from ancestors, universe, fucking whatever, right? Whoever your spirit guides are, you begin to let that shit come through. And then it's like you're never the same again. Then you have to like follow some of those mandates. And I know that you are somebody who receives and that you follow what comes in, right? Just as I have in my business at times and being like, oh, we're doing this today. Okay. Or we're pivoting this way. All right. You know? But yeah, when we stop numbing, we open up and we become tuning forks or lightning rods or whatever you want to call it for those energies that are they're like knocking on the door trying to get through and we're not listening because we're like numbing out.
Yeah. I just had a massive download talk about channels while I was listening to you talk. I was just like, I know why I drank for so fucking long, because I was trying to fucking not listen to divine guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if I was drunk, I couldn't hear them.
Right.
I can't hear you.
La 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 la.
I'm not following that because the last time you told me to do something, it was witch bitch whore. Not listening. Go away. I'm drinking rosé. Not available, spirits. Go away. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm actually serious, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, part of the reason this is so nourishing, this conversation, and part of the reason why I wanted to invite you in particular to talk is because last year or the year before that, I don't even time, what is time? Um, yeah, it was the fall of almost 2 years ago, where I went through this transformation where I felt myself just go underground. It's like my whole body sunk into the ground and I was crawling like underneath the roots of plants for about 5 or 6 months. And
Yeah.
what was happening was that I was going from whatever mother energy into Crone. I was transitioning into Crone. And this was even before I turned 50, but it just happened involuntarily. It was just like not by my choice, but it was just like, nope, this is what's happening right now. You are going to obey, you're going to go underground. And my whole relationship to my business changed. Like everything changed. Like I no longer wanted to be on social media.
Yeah.
I know, like it's just everything, things fell away that impacted my business in big ways. And I am curious if that resonates with you, what you have to say about Crone.
I'm drinking one of my two drinks. I actually have three here. Um, I, would love to, first of all, while you were talking, I was thinking to myself, I really want to hear more about crawling underneath the roots of plants. What was that experience like for you? Is this more, because like you're using, I think it's a metaphor what you just used. It's like you weren't necessarily crawling under plants, but it was more like, were you journeying there? Like, how did you know you were crawling around the roots of plants?
It
Just
like
so people,
when I closed my eyes, that's where I saw myself being. Like I just anytime I closed my eyes to meditate or to do or even before going to sleep, that's where I saw myself. That's just kind of where the space I was inhabiting. And it was just like an underground transformation, but it felt very slow and it felt very like felt very raw and animal-like. Sexuality was part of it. Like, I don't know. It was just like have very vivid imagery of just feeling like, yep, I'm just crawling underground. And that just felt like a fact. Um, yeah, I don't know what else to say about it except that it was it was like an incubation, like a hibernation. Yeah.
yeah. No, I thank you for explaining that because I wanted you to share more about it because I just know that you have the ability to actually answer the question that I was asking in a way that would create a visual for people who are either listening or watching us.
Yes.
Because that's what a vision is. That's a vision.
Hmm.
When, when you're closing your eyes and you see images and it's like it's a repeated vision that's coming back over and over again. So, that's something that's here to either show you something, teach you something, help you understand what you're going through. And if you're drunk like me, it's hard sometimes to be able to make the connections that, okay, this vision every time I close my eyes is coming back.
Hmm.
Right. And like people are so scared of the word witch, and we can talk about, some of the archetypes that I work with, but it's like this is opening yourself up to the inner world, like what's going on inside you. And there's,
Yes.
the underworld journey, which I feel like I'm finally coming out of. Mine was 18 months and I was really tired of it.
Jesus. What was yours like? Tell me about yours.
Am I giving birth to an elephant? Do elephants gestate for 18 months? Like what animal? I was going, what animal on earth? Is it a dragon? Am I giving birth
Maybe.
to, yeah, maybe it's a dragon. Am I giving birth to a Whoracle? Like what is this? It was like, fuck. So let's talk about the underworld journey. I'm trying to figure out how do I bring Crone into this.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm gonna throw a plot twist in. Um, so I'm gonna like the journey really started for me at the beginning of 2023.
Okay. Okay.
I was
Yes.
started to really question what the fuck am I involved in?
Yes.
With like the online coaching space, like
Yes. Thank you.
who am I listening to? Like
Mm-hmm.
what am I talking about? Like what am I doing? Like am I working with like who am I meant to work with? Like, it was like an existential
Yes.
crisis,
Yes.
and it started to just kind of like things started feeling weird like the first quarter of 2023. I was just like, like I was almost like I just couldn't. It was like I was working through molasses,
Yes.
and it was like it was hard for me to show up. And if you have ever seen me when I am showing up,
Oh
it's
my God.
like
It's big.
you're like, what the fuck? Holy fuck. Feel like there's shit flying at me from everywhere.
Right.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And then snowpocalypse happened. That
Yes.
was that was March of 2023. Um, we got hit with a snowstorm. I live in the mountains. I live in a place that I call Witch Mountain, which is in Southern California. And I do actually live on the top of a peak of a mountain. I do. And I had to come here to learn about power. You want to learn power? Go sit on the top of a fucking mountain day after motherfucking day. And sometimes the mountain will dump like fucking 9 to 10 feet of snow on your ass.
Wow.
And if people are like, oh, we get 9 to 10 feet of snow here, do you get it all at once? Sure, you might get it over a season. Do you get it all at once? And then do you have to try to dig out of it? And then can any fucking vehicles in the vicinity of you drive? No,
Right.
you can't. You need specialized giant machines.
Yes.
So that was like, it
Yeah.
took me and it was like, Pat, 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 let me just shove you so fucking far into the underworld. And it was like, I kept thinking I was digging myself out, and then another 3 feet of snow would come. And then I was like, and it was just like, I finally was like, all right, I'll lie down. I'll lie down. Took 9 feet of snow.
Wow.
And then I was like, okay, I will stay in the underworld.
I
And
surrender. Thank you.
I was like, all right. And then I popped up for a minute to do audacious archetypes. And then I went back in again. And then October 7th happened. And then I was like, is there any motherfucking thing that I have to say right now worth fucking saying?
Yeah.
Like I went from content creation to shut the fuck up and listen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was also going, I have no money. Right? I'm like, I'm in the underworld and I'm not earning any money right
Right.
now.
Right. I'm on the underworld trying to make money. I'm just kind of here and trying to run
Yes,
my business from the underworld.
underworld. Yeah. It's like, there's nothing. Well, I don't even know that it's an initiation. I don't know if it's and first of all, I was blessed. I was in the underworld and wasn't in the outer world, like getting blasted, right? I was
Right.
like, okay, um, okay, I'm here. And also, how do I do this? And it's like, I really was running on the bare minimum. I have two OG clients who've been with me since the beginning, who have kept working with me. And honestly, so I wasn't out there looking for people to work with. I was just basically being sustained. And I met a woman also who opened a boutique up here who I became friends with. And she's like, do you want to work at the boutique a couple of days a week? And I was like, yes, I do. So I make $17 an hour at working at the boutique. And do you want to know what? My biggest responsibility is like steaming clothes and making sure things look nice and talking to people. And so I have the opportunity to speak to humans, which I
Yes.
wasn't having in the underworld in my house.
Right, 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 right. Yes.
I was
Right.
like, I'm making grocery money and also humans I can look at in real life and not on a screen.
Yes, exactly.
I needed that. I've got my boyfriend lives here. I have a cat. I mean, but sometimes I spend more time alone than most people. I don't even know. Like, I mean, I do live a pretty monastic existence. It's me in my house with my books and my
Yeah.
cat. And now that I'm not drinking, it's like it's fascinating to me because I went from binge drinking to binge reading. I'm
Ah,
like,
eating
I
it
love all the books and all the words, right? And I'm like, you have a problem. My boyfriend's like, I have like 20 something library books here. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I need this. He goes, this would stress me out. And I was like, why? It's so comforting. It's so comforting to me. He goes, this is like 2 years of reading and it would stress me out because I would keep looking at it thinking I had to read it all. And I was like, no, I just pick one when I want to read it and then I put it back when I'm done with it. It's like the best. So you know, I, but I couldn't do that while I was in. I was still drinking also while I was in the underworld. And when you're in the underworld and you drink more than you ever did before, which was one of the reasons I was like, once I started coming out, I was like, you got to stop.
hmm
You have to stop. Like you have to stop. And I'm looking for my book. Hold on. I have a thing I'm working with. I'm reading This Naked Mind, which if you want to get off alcohol, This Naked Mind by Annie Grace is amazing because she tells you like brain chemistry wise what's going on in your brain with alcohol and why you're addicted to it, which nobody talks about. They're just like, get off it. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, it's hard. So in my book, because I also had to come off alcohol to get out of the underworld.
Yes.
My dad had to die while I was in the underworld. I mean, there's so much shit that happened.
Yeah.
So this is what I wrote. This was I do exploraments. An explorament is an experiment and an exploration, right? It's an
Yeah.
explorament. It's also an experiment. It's like what happens if? So my explorament is my spiritual gifts are amplified when I put down the booze. So I'm looking for evidence. I can't stop this shit from coming through me right now. It's like,
It's dumping. It's
it's
dumping
like
in.
I actually am working to create structures of how do I work with the massive volume of stuff that is coming out of me or has already come out of me.
Yes.
So I have like a massive amount of, like this size notebooks full of stuff. Um, and so the underworld kind of happened, so it's like, and I had enough to basically get by on with, kind of like two OG people sustaining me and working at the shop and like honestly, getting money out of money for retirement to just try to like, and I had to really cut back on everything.
hmm
And it's like, I'm like, great. I'm learning how to live within a budget. Cause when I worked in Hollywood, I made really good money and I didn't ever have to worry about money. And now I'm like, bitch, you need to learn what it's like to work for $17 an hour, which is a lot and also not very much at all. And, I'll be like, wow, it took me an hour to earn a sandwich. right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is this? This is a reality that most people exist in.
Yes, exactly.
It took me an hour to go buy a sandwich if I bought it next door at the cafe,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, this is insane, Underworld. Thanks for all the lessons. And when am I going to get out? And I kept trying. I kept popping out going, I'm out. And people were like, yay. And then I go, boom, back in.
Exactly. Exactly. And you're like, no, you're not done yet. You're going back in.
Yeah. So I learned a lot. Like, don't ever say you're out of the fucking underworld, because whoever's in charge of you being in the underworld, whether it's you or somebody else that you work with, like some guiding spirit, they just shove your ass back in. And sometimes it's an easy reentry, and sometimes you're like, fuck. So that one was my dad's passing.
Yeah.
And he passed in March of this year.
Oh, wow.
And you know, what was kind of interesting about that is, he had Alzheimer's, so it was happening.
Yeah.
And he was 83, so he had lived a
Yeah.
long life. And I got the call like, okay, my stepmom literally, when she picked up the phone, she goes, Amy, your dad is dying. And I was just like, what? Like, because she's like, he just went downhill. So she goes, it was
Yeah.
like, turn. And so that happened really fast. And it happened right around a hair appointment. This is going to sound faintly narcissistic. I'm opening my third beverage, my LaCroix. Um, and it was like my roots were growing in, and they're very white. And I didn't have time really to go get my hair done before I was going to go see my dad. And then also the woman that does my hair went on vacation for like 2 weeks. And so I go on this odyssey to go pick up my brother in Atlanta. We borrow my mom's bright red Prius. She lends it to us. And we drive from Atlanta to North Carolina, through rural South, in my mom's bright red Prius that has a restore voting rights sticker on the back of it, right? And my brother was dying because he drives a truck, and we was like, we nicknamed my mom's car El Matador because it was like red for all the conservatives, right? They're just like, they see this car and they want to just ram it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And, we got to my dad's, and he basically is waiting for
Mm.
us. He
Hmm.
can't speak anymore. He's in, I learned a lot of things. Like, he's in his deathbed, the bed he died in. The sound that he's making is what is called a death rattle, which is like very labored breathing.
Yes.
He's unconscious for most of the time. Me and my brother get there, and we're sitting, by his bed, and it was really fascinating to me because my dad came back in, right?
Mm.
I could
Mm.
see his energy coming back into his body. And it
Yeah.
started with him just like, I'm going to try to open up, like kind of opening up one eye. And it was like, it was really slow. And then he came back in, and then he was trying to speak, but he
Yeah.
couldn't speak, and it was like, we got to see him and spend time with him. So I believe he knew we were there. And it was like, then it was time for him to get the medication he gets at night, and we left, and then he never woke up the next day. And I was there sitting next to him, and it was like, it was almost like his face was collapsing,
Oh,
like
wow.
his nose was changing. It was collapsing in on itself. He started to not look like himself.
Yeah.
And that day that I was with him, um my brother and I went back that evening. That was the last time we ever saw him alive.
Hmm.
And the next morning we got a call that he had passed that morning. And it was like, it was also the experience of witnessing the transition of his energy leaving, right?
Yes.
And we went back after he left that morning, and we stayed until the funeral home came and took his body away. And, I sat with his body, and it was like, that's a portal unlike anything you can possibly imagine. And I did all of that completely alcohol free before I did the 50 days that I just did. There was
Mm-hmm.
some knowing in me that said no. And it would have been really easy to drink that whole time. But I was like, no,
Yeah.
you have to be 100% here.
Yeah.
And then it was like, we did a pussy rave. Um, Literally, I think it was like a few days after his passing. I was like, oh my God, my dad threw a pussy rave as a wake for himself. Like,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
and it was like,
wow.
I was like, what? It timed it right with the full moon. He was like 2 or 3 days before the full moon he passed. And I mean, I danced with him,
Yeah.
and it was like my dad was extremely religious Catholic, wanted me to be a nun. So I became the Whoracle instead. It was exactly what he wanted. And my whole life, you should be a nun. You should be a nun. I was like, you really don't have any idea. And it was almost like, it was interesting because it was like he handed me the priesthood.
Oh, wow. Yes.
He handed me the priesthood. And it was like, I also got this knowing while I was like at his bedside. It's like, you have to grow your hair out. I was like, what? I told you I drink so I do not have to listen to you. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, right? And talking about Crone. And I wrote a post about my hair and posted it real quick. I was still in the underworld. Um, because my partner was having such a hard time with my hair.
Yeah.
I was like, let me just publicly announce I'm doing it so that the pressure at home won't get me to diet yet. Right? I can always dye it back. I don't have to
Yeah.
do anything.
Yeah.
Um, and we did really lighten my hair a lot to match the gray, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
it's
No, I
like
think it looks fucking fantastic.
and it's like I don't even know what my hair looks like under this. I
Yeah.
don't know because I've been dyeing it for so many years.
Yeah.
And what's been fascinating with Crohn's, I posted, I'm letting my hair grow so that he would not like, I was just like, let me stop this. And I was like, you have so much gray.
Right. He gets to
You're,
have gray. You don't.
and he literally, like, he'll hopefully never listen to this podcast. He literally said to me, he goes, it's okay for men.
And you said, go fuck yourself.
I was like, this is why I'm fucking doing it. And I love him because he really has so much patriarchal conditioning and also he's a super conscious,
Yeah.
evolved person at the same time. So it's always so fascinating for me to go, like, your inside and outside voice that's telling me the stuff that literally we've been like forced to, like, women are
Yeah.
forced to dye their hair.
Yeah.
They're forced to dye their hair.
Yeah,
You
because you become invisible. Because even the attention that I would get 3 years ago when I walked around in public is not the attention that I get now. Like I don't
no,
get attention. I have no sway. Like I'm completely invisible. And still think I'm cute, but clearly the world has other opinions and I've had to adjust my expectations. But that's the reality that we live in is it's like after a certain age, you become obsolete. You are no longer in your childbearing years, right? And I don't know, this just I feel like this conversation is to be continued because there's so much more here. There's so much more here that we need to address. And we're out of time. But I want you to tell people how they can find you, how they can, well, you have a podcast as well, right? So
yeah.
you have places where you get to express your full self unapologetically and really like drop those downloads for transmissions.
Yeah, so I am on, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Witch, not the other one, Witch Bitch Whore, all spelled correctly. So that's where you can find me on Instagram. I have a podcast. It's called The Whoracle Speaks. Season 1 is up. I have not started season 2 yet because I was in the underground. I did do some podcasting from the underground, and then I was no longer allowed to speak anymore. It was like really fascinating. So in my last, even my last episode that I recorded was like a speed recording. I'm out. So that's where you can find me. I definitely think we should continue this. And we really left where we left off, we can begin with, which is Crone.
Yes, beautiful. Bless you. I love your energy. I'm just so like, I'm in my delight right now. It's like, oh, yes, there's so much here, right? There's so much energy here. So thank you for coming on and to be continued.
Yeah, this is a fun conversation. Thank you.